Welcome back to RTO Media. Today we have a crazy Reddit story for you guys. It's titled, I Wake Up as a Different Person Every Day. We got this from the r/nosleep subreddit, and this was posted by user externalcandy548 9 hours ago. So this is a new one, guys. My name is Cleo. I have to write that down every morning. First thing before I check my hands to see if they're wrinkled or smooth. Before I look in the mirror to see whose face stares back. Before I access the lifetime of memories that aren't mine but are suddenly as real as my own. I find a pen, a piece of scrap paper, a napkin, a dusty window pane, anything, and I write down Cleo. It's an anchor. It's the only piece of my original life I have left. I don't remember my face, my family, my job. I don't know what happened to my body, the one that was born with that name. I don't know if it's lying in a coma somewhere or if it's just vanished. All I know is the name and the fact that for the last, how has it been? I don't even know how many years. I'm writing this down because I think you need to know. I think someone needs to know that there's some mechanism in the world that isn't supposed to be there. And I am its engine. At first it was pure, undiluted terror. The first time it happened, I woke up tasting stale beer and regret. My head throbbed with a hangover that felt like a drill bit boring into my skull. I tried to roll over and my body felt wrong, heavy, bulky. My arms were thick with wiry hair, and when I ran a hand over my face, I felt sandpaper rasp of 2-day-old beard. I sat bolt upright. The room was dark, but a silver of dawn seeped through the cheap blinds. It smelled of sweat and old laundry. Beside me in the queen-size bed, a woman sighed in her sleep, her back to me. Panic seized me, cold and sharp. This wasn't my room, this wasn't my bed, and this most definitely was not my body. I stumbled out of bed, my limbs clumsy and unfamiliar. I found a bathroom and flipped the light switch. The man staring back at me from the mirror was a stranger. He was in his late 40s, I guess. His hair was thinning, his face was puffy, and his eyes were bloodshot and circled with exhaustion. He wore a faded gray t-shirt and boxer shorts that strained against a soft punch. But the real horror wasn't the reflection, it was the information that flooded my mind, and at the same time, the man's name was Jim. He was a construction foreman, he loved Red Sox, hated his brother-in-law, and the night before he had a blistering argument with his wife, Susan, the woman in the bed, about money. I knew the intimate details of their 20-year marriage. I knew he was afraid she was going to leave him. I knew all of this, Jim's entire life, but I also knew with terrifying certainty that I was Cleo. I had 2 sets of memories, 2 identities, wrestling for control of my skull. I clutched the porcelain sink, knuckles white, and I could feel Jim's despair, his helplessness. But my own panic was louder. It was screaming, siren downing, owed everything else. The woman Susan walked in. She didn't look at me, at Jim, with love. Her face was a mask of tired frustration. "You're up," she said, her voice flat. "Coffee's on." "Who are you?" I blurted out. My voice was low, gravelly thing that vibrated in a chesty cavity that was far too long. She stopped, her hand on the doorframe. "Don't start, Jim. I'm not in the mood for your games this morning." "No, you don't understand," I pleaded, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. "I'm not Jim. My name is Cleo. I don't know how I got here. I don't know what's happening." She stared at me, her expression softened for a fraction of a second, with something that might have been concern, before it hardened into suspicion. "Are you still drunk? Is this about last night? You think if you got crazy, I'll forget you gambled away the mortgage payment?" Jim's memory provided the context, the guilt, but I didn't care about the mortgage payment. I was a prisoner, I was a ghost. "Please," I begged, tears welling up in Jim's eyes. "You have to believe me. I'm a woman. My name is Cleo. I woke up in here." That was the wrong thing to say. The last flicker of symphony in her eyes died. All she saw was a man on the edge of a breakdown trying to manipulate her. She saw Jim. "I'm going to my sister's for a few days," she said, her voice like ice. "You need to get yourself together, Jim. I can't do this anymore." She left. I spent the rest of the day in a fatigued state. I went to Jim's construction site, moved through the motions on pure muscle memory that I shouldn't even have. I barked orders in his voice. I read blueprints in his eyes and understood. But inside, I was screaming. I was tired. I tried calling a hotline, but I hung up. What I would say: "Hi, I'm a woman named Cleo, trapped in a construction worker's body." They'd send a white van. That night, I didn't even try to fix things with Susan. I was too confused and consumed with my own crisis. I just collapsed into Jim's bed, into the hollow his body had made for years, and prayed that sleep would be an escape. I prayed that I would wake up as Cleo. I didn't. I woke up so small, the world felt enormous. The blankets, a mountain range. My hands were tiny, the fingers delicate. I was in a child's room, decorated with cheap peeling unicorn decals. The air was thin and smelled of stale cigarette smoke and something else, something sour. Fear. I looked in the cracked mirror on the back of the bedroom door. A little girl stared back. She couldn't have been more than 7. She had stringy blonde hair, blue eyes that were swimming with a sadness no child should know, and the faint yellow-purple shadow of a bruise high on her cheekbone. Her name was Allie, and as soon as I knew her name, I knew her secrets. I knew that the monster wasn't under the bed. He was in the living room, passed out in his recliner. I knew why her arm ached. He grabbed her too hard the day before. Allie's memories were a landscape of tiptoeing, of quiet sobs into her pillow, of desperate primal fear of her own father. This time, the panic was different. The raw, selfish terror of being Cleo in Jim's body was replaced by a cold, protective rage. I remembered my failure as Jim. I'd spent the whole day trying to convince Susan I was someone else, completely ignoring the problem that was destroying Jim's life. I wouldn't make that mistake again. I couldn't, not for Allie. I didn't try to be Cleo. I had to be Allie, but an Allie with a resolve she didn't know she had. My heart hammered in my chest. I dressed Allie's little body in jeans and a t-shirt, my borrowed fingers fumbling with the buttons. I crept out of the room. The stench of booze and smoke was stronger in the hall. In the living room, a large, unshaven man snored loudly in a stained armchair, an empty bottle of whiskey resting on the floor beside his hand. Allie's father. Allie's memories flinched at the sight of him, but I pushed through. I opened the front door of the trailer as quietly as I could, and I slipped out into the cool morning air. The police station was on the other side of town. It was a long walk for the little eggs, but I walked. Every step was an act of rebellion against Allie's fear. People in cars stared as the little girl walked alone along the highway shoulder, but no one stopped. Finally, I saw the blue and white building. I pushed open the heavy glass door. A woman at a high desk looked up, her expression tired. "Can I help you, sweetie? Are you lost?" I stood on my tiptoes to see over the counter. I used Allie's small, wavering voice, but I filled it with the strength I could muster. "No," I said, "I'm looking right in her eyes. I'm here to report a crime." Her demeanor shifted instantly. She came around the desk and knelt in front of me. "Okay, what happened?" I took a deep breath and I told everything. Not as Chloe, but as Allie. I used Allie's words, describing her memories, her pain. I showed the policewoman the fading handprint-shaped bruise on Allie's arm. By the end of the day, I was sitting in a brightly lit room with a kind of face social worker, drinking apple juice from a box. Allie's father was in custody. Allie was safe. When I fell asleep that night on a cot in a temporary foster home, it wasn't with the panic of the night before. It was with the profound sense of peace. I had done something. I had helped. The next day, I woke up as Jennifer. Jennifer was a 17-year-old girl. Her room was a college teenage agonist, band posters on the wall, clothes piled on a chair, a half-finished essay of The Great Gatsby on her desk. The dominant emotion in Jennifer's mind wasn't fear or despair, but a crushing, all-consuming anxiety, and centered on one person, her best friend, Cynthia. Jennifer was in love with Cynthia. hopelessly, silently in love. Her memories were real missed opportunities of words left unspoken, of staring at Cynthia's lips when she wasn't looking. She was terrified of telling her, certain it would ruin the friendship and end in humiliation. I sat on the edge of her bed and felt her anxieties as my own, but from my new perspective as Cleo, who had been a 48-year-old man and a 7-year-old girl in the last 48 hours, Jennifer's problem seemed so beautifully simple, so solvable. It wasn't about abuse or financial ruin, it was about courage. So I borrowed some. I picked up Jennifer's phone. Her hands were shaking. I found Cynthia's number and I called her. Hey, Cynthia's cheerful voice came through the speaker. What's up? You're up early. I took a breath. Can you meet up at the park by the swings? It's important. An hour later, we were sitting on an old swing, the chains creaking softly. The morning was bright and crisp. I watched Cynthia talk, laughing about a stupid teacher, and I could feel Jennifer's heart doing a frantic drum solo against her ribs. When she paused, I stopped my swing and I turned to her. Cynthia, I said, using Jennifer's voice, there's something I have to tell you and might change things, and I'm so scared of that, but I can't say it. Cynthia's smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. Jen, you're scaring me. What is it? I'm in love with you, I said. The words came out in a rush, a dam breaking. Not like a friend, more than that. And I know you probably don't feel the same way, but I had to tell you. Since it stretched for an eternity, I could feel Jennifer's mortification rising from a fever. She wanted to run to despair, to rewind time. But then Cynthia reached out and gently took my hand. Her thumb traced circles on the blanket, on the back of my palm. Jen, she said softly, why do you think I've been single for the last 2 years? And then she leaned in, she kissed me. It was gentle and hesitant, and it was the most wonderful thing Jennifer had ever experienced. When I went to sleep that night, it wasn't as a terrified prisoner or as a righteous rescuer. It was as a girl who had found happiness. And that's when I finally understood the pattern. Every life I inhabited it as was at a crossroads. Every person is facing a single defining problem that they are unable or unwillingly to solve. Jim needed to face his addiction with his selfishness to save his marriage. Allie needed to speak up to her, save her own life. Jennifer needed a moment of courage to find love. I was the catalyst, the solution. That was years ago. I've been a lot of people since then, thousands. Maybe I've been a man dying of cancer who needed to make peace with his estranged son. I've been a young lawyer who needed the confidence to blow the whistle on her corrupt firm. I've been an old woman in the nursing home who just needed to tell her stories to someone, anyone, before they were gone forever. I even died once. I was a detective named Frank, closing in on a killer. Frank was a good cop, but he was reckless. I walked into an ambush. He should have seen it coming. I remember the white-hot pain of the bullet tearing through my chest, the feeling of the world going gray and distant, the surprise, and then nothing, just a silent, peaceful darkness. And then I woke up. I was a college student named Mariah, hungover after her first fraternity party. Life, it seems, goes on. My death was just a blimp. Problem solved. Frank died a hero, and the evidence he'd already compiled, but the killer away for life. A neat and tidy ending. The terror is long gone now. There is a sense of purpose, of comfort, even. I don't know how or who Cleo was anymore. Her life is a crossroads too. Was there a problem in her life so immense that the only solution was for her to dissolve, to become a tool for others? Maybe I had to lose myself to find this calling. So now you know, I'm out here. Every day I wake up, I write my name down so I don't forget the one piece of myself I have left. And then I get to work. I'm telling you this for a reason. I see myself differently now. I'm not a victim of some cosmic anomaly. I am an intervention, a helping hand reaching out from a place you can't see. A guardian angel, if you want to be poetic about it. So if you're reading this and your life is at a standstill, if there's a conversation you're too terrified to have, a decision you're too paralyzed to make, a path you're too scared to walk, maybe you should pray. Pray for a little help. Pray for a moment of courage you didn't think you had. Pray for an angel, and if you're lucky, very lucky, I just might hear you. Don't be surprised if you go to sleep one night, blundered and lost, and the next morning you wake up to find your problem has been solved. The only price you'll pay is the memory of a single missing day. A day when I took your body, Kristen.